Whispering Woods is growing, and Genevieve Joyce couldn't be happier. Newly established connections with Sabina Maharjan at the Asian Conservancy Project have allowed the relocation of a pair of Pallas cats and the design of a spacious enclosure for Takin and Markhor by Hamza Nuruzman, an up-and-coming Pakistani architect. Now, news of Little Asia at Whispering Woods has reached China, where Feng Liwei, a Chinese businessman looking to support conservation efforts, wants to leave his mark in Europe. Promising a hefty sum of £200,000 for the design of a Chinese garden and pagoda, he has only one request: a red panda. Imogen Chen leaps at the opportunity to house one at the Haven, despite protests from Wesley Parsons, who has recently been trying to secure a pair of Chinese pangolins. But money talks, especially where Jonathan Vaughn is involved. So regardless of his nephew's wishes, the accountant gives the go-ahead, and Arthur Joyce, head of construction, puts his team to work. Welcome back to Whispering Woods, Wildlife Haven. Hey everyone, Sparrow here. I've really been on a roll with Little Asia, so we're back at Whispering Woods again this week to put together a Chinese pagoda for the red panda and a matching Chinese garden for our guests to wander through. As usual, if you like Planet Zoo content that's packed full of educational facts about not only animals but also architecture and science and history and all the other things, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and also leave a comment because all of those things feel awesome as a creator. The octagon before you is the base for our pagoda, and I'm just setting up my stone walls so that I can rotate them into place around the octagon. I'm using the Indonesian temple stone for this, recolored to have a slightly mossy look. Chinese pagodas were actually originally built on a square or circular base, with the octagon appearing between the 5th and 10th century. Another point of note is that pagodas were originally built from wood, but stone and brick did eventually take over. We'll be using a mix, and I get to play around with the base game East Asia pieces. These actually stand up quite well to the test of time, though I won't be keeping the bright red color all around. Going to put in a guest viewing platform on this side, while the rest of that floor space will be for our red panda. I love these little creatures, they're absolutely adorable. Now for a short tip, I still get lots of questions about stairs and inclines and how to line them up. You want to make sure that the elevated length is checked off and then slide it to the shortest length possible. This will give you 2 stairs at a time, which gives you much more flexibility when it comes to making raised platforms. I like to align my first piece to the grid to make sure it's at a 90-degree angle, and then check off the elevated length, add my stairs, and there we have it. Now that my wall piece is finished with some decorative elements, I'll slide that across once more and then rotate into place. I had this vision of a massive Japanese maple in the center of the pagoda, and these ones by Romana Palacios on the workshop are simply stunning. If you haven't checked him out before, you definitely need to. Setting that into the floor of the pagoda with some faux rocks, I rarely use the random rotation all setting, but this is one of those places where it definitely makes sense to use it. After adding some mesh to our pagoda walls to make sure the red panda isn't going anywhere, I'll frame it out with some more wood beams. Made sure to turn climbing off on these pieces, as the red panda would then be able to escape, and we definitely don't want that. I'll also add a glass viewing area at the front of the guest platform, framed out by some of my favorite pieces, the marquee beams. Yes, they're still on my list of favorites, even with all of the new pieces we just got. As I said earlier, we won't be keeping this red everywhere. Most of the timber in this build will be this dark brown gray color, but I will be keeping those main columns red since the color represents luck, prosperity, happiness, and all of the good things in many Asian countries. And that's really what I want for the cast of Whispering Woods, for myself, and for you too, of course. Now onto the roof. I don't think I have ever used this many grid pieces in a non-grid way. And what I mean by that is that each section of roof is its own group, or in the case of this side, 2 separate groups. This allowed me to line it up evenly with the sides of the octagon, but also presented quite a few challenges because you can't copy more than one group at a time, and you can't join grid pieces to other grid pieces if they're in separate groups. So the workaround, I created a quarter of the roof, blueprinted it, and then slid it into the other corners, making sure to delete any roof that was doubling up. And with that, we have the first layer of the pagoda complete. Since there is a massive tree growing in here, I want to make sure there is more light coming in. So the second layer will feature a small window on each side and tie in those stone and timber pieces we've been using throughout. A slanted roof here to provide more height, and for the final layer, since pagodas are generally built with an odd number of tiers, a glass structure with a finial. This top piece on pagodas has been known to be struck by lightning, seeing as many pagodas are very tall, and modern pagodas are actually often fitted with a lightning rod on the finial to prevent damage to the structure. With all of that work put into the roof, we're going to remove it and get started on the habitat interior. This gravel or Zen pebble piece is available on Leaf's workshop and is apparently a texture that was supposed to be in the game and was somewhere in the metadata. I'm not entirely sure if I understand it, but each piece is a single item, so you don't need to place all of those little pebbles individually. I'm also going to place a bunch of pre-built climbing structures. This is mostly because I find custom-built climbing structures make for some very janky climbing, worse than it already is, and I'm also more focused on the architecture and planting of this section, so it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time on this. Now that the enrichment has been placed down, here's a view of our red pandas traversable area. Two final details, some fallen leaves since we do have a massive tree in here, and some red oat grass. I like to make a group that I can then stamp down wherever I need. Since this is a flat enclosure, that also makes life easier. The pagoda is done, but now we need a Chinese garden to situate it in. What I'll be doing here is creating a moon gate. This is a traditional architectural element in Chinese gardens and acts as a passageway. It presents itself as a circular opening in a garden wall and is said to be tied to vitality and renewal. The moon is also a place of safety. I read a Chinese myth recently where a deity steals the elixir of immortality and flees to the moon afterwards, where he can't be reached. There is some evidence too that moon gates originated as a measure to be more inclusive. A rich noble wanted to appear inviting to the lower classes, and the circle can be seen as a symbol of openness and invitation. Either way, whichever interpretations you believe, I hope you can agree that the moon gate is a gorgeous part of traditional Chinese architecture. In the background of my custom moon gate, you probably can see one of the lintel pieces from the East Asia theme. It just wasn't quite the right size, not what I was looking for, so instead I spent about an hour and a half building a custom entrance. This includes the roof, which I made out of twilight pieces. These window beams were perfect for that. If you watch my channel, you will know that I suck at rotating things in the air, so this roof was a bit of a struggle. I think I tried it at least 3 times because the math just wasn't mathing, but we do get there in the end. I considered doing a flat roof, but moon gates generally have a sloped roof on either side to symbolize the 2 half moons, so I wanted to be accurate towards that historical and cultural aspect. We'll encase our Chinese garden with a simple wall, again using that twilight beam as the top, some plaster, and the mossy stone trim on the bottom. The path here is sloped, so I had to go back and adjust some things. After all of that hard work, it's time for my favorite part, the planting. Let me just say, the custom foliage available on the workshop is not something I knew I needed in my life. Here we have some garden pieces from N7, Romana Palacios, as well as Captain Callum, who has absolutely been killing the workshop game recently. Why custom plants? We have so many plants in the game already, but we don't have the right ones for a Chinese garden. There is so much symbolism in the plants added to a garden, ranging from beauty and wealth with azaleas, purity and grace with magnolia trees, peace and longevity with Japanese maples, and so on. Even the ornamental grasses placed in Chinese gardens have a meaning, such as endurance or harmony between nature and man. While I didn't go all out and design this garden with principles of feng shui in mind, I did want to make it appear harmonious and full of life. There's a small pond, as pagodas generally look out over a body of water, and a viewing platform for guests. The rockwork will support some shrines near the pond, as well as provides a space for displaying bonsai trees throughout the garden. These are from the awesome set by Romana Palacios. Check out the workshop collection down below. The finishing touches always take so incredibly long, especially when you decide to line the entire path with moss decals. and then forget to put them in a single group. But once that's been sorted and the color has been matched, we'll head over to the viewing platform where I'm taking a page out of the book of Pacha Kamak. I'm always mesmerized when he uses planks of any sort because he makes sure to mix and match different lengths to reduce the repeating patterns, and that's what I'm doing here with this flooring to cover up the viewing area. Just going to set my vista point to make sure guests come up here as well. And the final detail, these falling leaf effects, which Digital Bob uses all the time in his zoos, and I have absolutely been sleeping on them. So many shoutouts to wonderful creators in this video. I hope you do go check them out, and I hope that you enjoyed this build. It was so fun to research the various architectural elements, figure out how to build them, and then see it all come together. I'll leave you to explore the garden now, and I will see you next time. Bye.